Anthology of Charlottesville coming in December. They're North 29 on Polo Grounds Road. I'm not really going to talk about senior living at all. So for everyone that's disappointed, I apologize. What I am going to do is I'm going to give away the entire presentation first. All right, so kind of Dave Chappelle. I'm going to give you the punchline, and then I'll go through the jokes. All right. So really, the presentation is there's nothing in here that you haven't heard before or that you don't know. So I'm just going to be hammering that a little bit. But honestly, as a society, not Charlottesville, but as a culture here in the United States, we don't have health care, we have sick care. And we don't do a good job at all of having discussions in and around what health care should be. There is a movement, lifestyle medicine. Harvard is now giving advanced degrees to medical doctors, but also respiratory therapists, physical therapists, even social workers and case managers in lifestyle medicine. Now, lifestyle medicine, there's been movements throughout history on lifestyle medicine. We'll see if Harvard's stamp on it helps it to I guess, stay or have sticking power. So why lifestyle medicine? Again, my name's David. I'm a physical therapist. I've been doing this for about 25 years. It does hinge well with senior living, but the whole gist of the presentation is you can live up until you die. So a lot of this information is about how to live and how to live better. Getting from where we are to the information that's in this presentation, a lot of people, hopefully you included, will think, oh, well, what do I have to give up in order to be able to do that? It's not giving up things. It's just looking at your lifestyle and being able to make small changes. It's not an easy thing. All right. That's okay. All right, so there's the definition for lifestyle medicine. Sit down, stand up. I'm in here, David. That's right. I'm in here, there. All right, so lifestyle medicine. Here are those 6 areas, and this is actually from before lifestyle medicine became its own kind of entity in modern Western medicine. This is from preventative medicine, kind of back in the 90s, and they outlined these kind of 6 areas. So I'm just going to talk about these 6 areas. And ultimately, how do we provide health care and not sick care? All right. So, because I'm dyslexic, I'm going to talk about medicine first, and then we'll get into lifestyle. So, medicine. Does everyone know the Hippocratic Oath? Does anybody know what it is? It's not, the answer's not up there.
It's not to
do no harm.
Do no harm. All right. So, Hippocrates had a lot of great things to say in and around medicine. And in Western medicine, we grabbed onto the wrong thing, all right? Because that's really what we do in Western medicine, is, okay, do no harm. Yeah, okay, let's fix it, but ultimately do no harm. This is another thing that Hippocrates said, which I think kind of fits with lifestyle medicine. So they knew this back in 460, 377 BC. So it wasn't just the 60s and now. All right, so now we'll talk about that lifestyle piece. So these are the different areas. Nutrition. Has anyone seen this? Is everyone familiar with the pyramid, the food pyramid? Marketing 101. Does anyone here do marketing? All right, so if you'd like to learn, oh no, how do we absolutely not mess up a campaign? Study the food pyramid. Sorry. The food pyramid was a complete failure because it ultimately didn't make sense. Know your audience, and they didn't do that. This is where Harvard has landed now, years and years later. All right, it does kind of make sense, but this is something that you guys just look at and kind of think about. This is how we should be eating. Is there a difference between this and how you do eat? And then, of course, Thomas Edison, he's real smart. He said that we should be paying attention to this. It's probably me. I touched it. That's the problem. All right. Activity. Activity, very important. So lack of activity destroys the good condition of every human being. When we talk about activity, What we have found, statistically looking at things, is that you need to have about 150 minutes of activity a week. Are you guys ready to do math? All right? So take 220, the number, 220, and subtract your age. I would recommend that you don't do it out loud. Right? So 220, multiply, take 220 minus your age, and then multiply that by 0.7. The American College of Sports Medicine says 70 to 80. The American Heart Association says kind of 60 to 80, so 70 is a nice point. All right? And that is for your heart rate. Now, I'm not giving you individual medical advice. Please talk to your doctor. There are tons of equations that can normalize for resting heart rates. All right? And of course, if you're taking any medications that change your heart rate or impact your heart rate, that would have an impact on this number. But assuming everyone kind of relatively healthy across the board, that's an important number for you to know. Stress. All right. I love this. This is the stress curve. Has anyone ever seen the stress curve before? You all need to know this. All right? So you have stress and performance. If you have absolutely no stress, all right, then you're likely to have poor performance. There is a zone of optimal performance where you have stress, your performance is high, and then you get into strong anxiety and then complete meltdown. And then you see performance then decreases, right? When we talk about decreasing stress, all right, we do a horrible job with it in our society. When you get to the point where you're on the other side of this curve here, the actions that you take will typically bring you in this direction, all right, down and to the left. So what do you do when you get into this area? Like you as an individual. If this was a large crowd, I wouldn't be doing this right now, but it's just us, all right? So take a nap. I can't handle this. I'm going to take a nap, all right? What you have done is you haven't decreased your stress to get into optimal performance. What you've done is gone down and to the left, all right? You have decreased your stress, but you've also decreased your performance. Unless you get paid to nap. Does anyone get paid to nap? All right. So that's just an example. Think about things that you do, or think about things that people do to decrease stress. There are some positive things that you can do to decrease stress. There are some negative things. I'm not saying that naps are negative. Sleep's on this thing here, on this presentation as well. But someone who is responsible for business or business performance needs to understand that decreasing stress does not mean letting go of performance. There's an optimal amount of stress that you can put yourself under. All right? What are some positive things in and around stress release?
Yoga.
Yoga's a wonderful thing, all right?
As opposed to pizza. I'm thinking about this, what I do.
Very good, very good. So yoga is a wonderful activity, all right? I'll be honest with you, I would love to do yoga, but finding the time to do yoga, my stress just got higher. It's a bad thing.
Mindfulness,
all right? Taking a moment. So one of the things that's worked very well for me is this not so stupid watch. It's a smart watch, actually, literally. And somebody at Apple decided that like every 2 hours or so that it would beep me and say, "Hey David, breathe."
Yeah.
And there's so many times when I get that notification and I say, "I don't have time for that." Are you serious? I can't take 7 breaths. All right? So mindfulness is important. Anything?
Meditation.
Meditation. Very good. Taking the time to clear things away. All right? And it kind of helps to let you reorganize so that you can get back into optimal performance. Sorry, I'm not telling you how to meditate. It's a good thing. All right. Harry Johnson knew that this was something that was important. Cortisol. All right. Cortisol is important. So cortisol is that hormone that the body releases when you get stressed. And if you have done lab work, you may have been able to see cortisol. If you've done core samples of muscle tissue, you can actually see cortisol. It's not even just in blood lab draws. You can see it in muscle biopsies. thinking about when your stress level gets higher, all right? Actually, do you guys know where they measure it the most? Is saliva. So when they're doing research studies and they want to see cortisol, they just take saliva. So you can see it everywhere, but that's the reason. Thinking about your stress level and it being cortisol that's going up. All right, so how do we get cortisol to try and go down? All right. And I'm sorry, I didn't solve stress for anyone in the room. I just pointed to it. I apologize. All right, socialization. So this is not one of the 6 areas in our lifestyle medicine. Socialization is probably one of the most important factors and things that we don't necessarily think of in relieving stress, all right? Unless it was yoga with people or meditation necessarily with people, all right? Socialization is hugely important. And I think people kind of know this, but we all know it now, right? After 18 months of not having it, this is unthinkable, all right? So this is in Westminster, and it is October of 2019, all right? I am socializing. I'm getting ready to eat good food. I've got my smartwatch on. I'm attached to Purpose. That's my old name badge from the job that I used to have, all right? And I'm smiling and laughing. I just did it on the radio this morning, 95.1. Oh, hey, you know people who laugh actually have better lives? Yes. You can hear it on the radio. All right, rest, sleep, very good. We have a huge gap between what we should do and what we actually do. So I'm just going to ask a few quick questions here. All right, who in this room goes to bed and wakes up at the same time every single day, even on the weekends? Excellent, very good.
I wake up at the same time, for sure.
Restricted sleep.
Very good. All right. So that's huge. Small. That's not small. It's a small change. If you just schedule, if you budget, this is when I'm going to go to bed, and this is when I'm going to wake up. Very good. All right. So from the time that you get in the bed to the time that you wake up, who here does not pick up and look at their phone? Excellent. All right. This one, discipline. All right. So, I use my phone
I
for
don't
my
go to bed till 1 in the
Yeah.
morning. So there's nothing happening between 1 and 7.
So nothing good happens. It used to be
Yeah,
nothing good
nothing
happens
good.
after 2 a.m. and then nothing good happens after midnight. Yeah,
True.
I'm starting to get to nothing good happens after 9 p.m. All right, so there's another one, all right? And discipline there is important. So not looking at your phone. I'm talking about, I use my phone for my alarm. The alarm goes off, get out of bed. You can pick up the phone when you get out of bed and look at it. Not, my alarm went off, let me hit snooze or let me turn it off so I don't wake somebody else up and then check my email and you're still in bed, stop! Get out of bed! All right. So, just 2 things. Going to bed, and waking up at the same time, all right? And then not looking at your phone. One more question. Who here has their bed made right now? All right? Making your bed. So, making your bed. Something relatively small, all right? But having the discipline to know that sleep is important and kind of doing that. Not necessarily, oh my Lord, if my dad sees my bed like this, I'm in trouble, even though my father passed away 20 years ago. All right, substance abuse, eliminate and moderate. Does anyone here smoke? If you do, stop. Does anyone here live in a household where someone smokes? You can be a non-smoker all you want, but if you're around smoke, all of the health impacts, you get them, okay? Beer, wine, what's that last one?
Cocktail,
Cocktail, all right? Does anybody know what's in that?
vodka,
Probably, all right. It is absolutely acceptable to have a club soda and lime. All right? You can even tip the bartender. Here's $20, thank you. And then be able to walk around, all right? There are social mores, and I definitely fell into them coming out of college, all right? But you don't have to have a drink.
Now, we're having a SIPS function, all right?
Always pointing at me.
No, that's all right. We're having a SIPS function. How many tickets?
Two.
Two.
For any kind of beverage you like.
I am in senior living. I give beverages. I have happy hour 6 days a week. And anyone that lives there, and anyone who comes to visit anyone who lives there at happy hour gets 2 drinks. Alcohol isn't the problem, all right? It's the moderation. So why do you drink? Do you drink because you like the taste? That's great. Do you drink because you're exhausted? That's not good. Do you drink because you don't want to give a presentation to a room full of people? That would be very bad. All right. So those were just kind of the 6. We ran through them very quickly. I apologize. Why is important? All right. So here are 2 through 10. How much we spend on these chronic health issues. And it is known that if we even master 4 of the 6 areas, because they did the MacArthur study, and it showed that if we tackled just 4 of those areas, that we would reduce spending by almost $1 trillion over the course of 10 years. Now, number 1 got lopped off. Does anybody know what number 1 is, or have an idea of what the number 1 thing is? Number 1 chronic health condition that we spend the most on?
Hypertension?
It's heart disease.
Heart disease.
Correct. All right. So heart disease is huge. All right. So money. Okay. Now, who wants to live forever? You don't have to answer that. All right. This isn't necessarily about just spending money. In the MacArthur study, people who had a healthier lifestyle lived 2 years longer than people that didn't. Oh, great. 2 more years. What does that mean? All right. The people that lived longer and lived healthier lifestyles spent less money. All right, so that's great. If I ran Medicare, I could save a whole bunch of money. But what does that mean to you as an individual? It really all comes back to, does anybody know who that guy is?
Is that Neil Young?
That is Neil Young. So what is,
I'm thinking.
what
How do we end up on this slide?
anybody know any good Neil Young lines?
Neil Young what?
Lines as a poet or a songwriter.
I probably know all of
It's
them.
better to burn out than it fade away.
Yeah.
All right? So, Billy Joel, only the good die young. Okay? So how do I kind of square that circle? That doesn't make sense, David. It is better to burn out than to fade away. This is fading away, all right? We're not really doing anything on purpose. We're living as long as we live. We make bad decisions. We spend a lot of money. At the end of life, all right, just to keep ourselves alive, we shouldn't do that. We should burn out, all right? And burning out, you can be 95 years old and still be healthy. The normal human condition is not, I get older. Oh, it hurts. This is horrible. I don't like it. No one's alive anymore. It's not a depressing day. It's depressing here, how we do end of life, how we live our lives, and then what the last 5, 10 years of our life looks like, all right? It doesn't have to be. Our bodies are not built that way, all right? If we just did those simple things, we would be able to live up until we die. All right. So, does everybody have their math with them? Target heart rate. Do you know what your target heart rate is? That's that 220 minus your age times 0.7. All right. So I was going to have everyone stand. We don't have to stand. Just kind of everyone raise your hand real quick. All right. Good. Everybody raise your hand. Very good. All right. Do you get 150 minutes of activity where your heart rate is at that number? Very good. All right. Eating a healthy diet. Did you guys see that plate? Do you do that? Do you eat that plate? Okay, good. Is anyone here a smoker?
No.
Okay, good. You're not smoking. That's good. Recommended body fat percentage. All right. So for a male, 20% and lower. So I would challenge you. Do you know what your body fat percentage is? All right. Probably close.
Yeah,
I would say you're in that 16 to 18 range. All right. That just as eyeball. For females, 30% and lower. Okay. So this room is consistent with the MacArthur study, which found that just these 4 markers in lifestyle medicine, there were only 2.7 people, 2.7% of the population that the MacArthur study looked at, which was huge. all right? The MacArthur study on aging took 10 years to do. They looked at millions of people. This isn't a random sampling of 100 people, all right? Only 2.7% of our population had hit those 4 markers.
David, what did that break down to by race or ethnicity?
It did not work in your favor. So being African American and female are both hits in how we do that, and how those numbers look. I can get the MacArthur study information. I'll send it to you. But honestly, these aren't just individual choices. All right, there's a lot that has to do with genetics, but it's society. It's how we put roles on people and the pressures that we put on people, and it is huge. If we change our environment, we can overcome some of the genetics. That's huge. And that's now, all right? So 15 years ago, I'm at GW, and we're having a presentation from, I forget what the gentleman's name was, but he spent 10 years in a lab looking at nature versus nurture. And he did that with health outcomes. He also actually did it in and around education, all right? And the answer 15 years ago was about 50-50, all right? 50% of your outcomes are because of your genetic makeup, and 50% of your outcomes are because of your surroundings, all right? That is changing rapidly. We are learning that you can actually change your genetics. You can modify your DNA if you're strong enough in your behavioral choices, all right? Now, of course, we know that when we look at athletes, they have their muscle fiber type, that's what it is. Well, if you do a lot of work, you can change your muscle fiber type. So, anyway, some things to think about, all right? Next time you are talking to your doctor and he says, hey, how are you doing? It would be great if we got to the point where your doctor was asking you about your sleep patterns. Was asking you, all right? So, they take your blood pressure now, right? There's plenty of other markers in and around lifestyle medicine that I hope to see at the doctor's office. And I think beyond that, because everyone knows exercise has always been important, but as a physical therapist, I only got to see people when it was broken, when it didn't work. Right? It would be nice as a society if we started to take these conversations proactively instead of reactively. So, anyway, I apologize. There you go. There's lifestyle medicine. That was an excellent question. Does anybody have any other questions?
I was just thinking about what you were saying about doctors' discussions, and I used to live in San Francisco many, many years ago, and started feeling like really poorly, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I mean, if I had a really bad cold or whatever, and so weren't finding any answers. And so my friend said, well, why don't you go to my doctor in Chinatown? Practices Chinese medicine. It's kind of a different approach. And so I went to see this doctor, and it was just remarkable how he didn't do anything to me. We just talked, and we got talking about it, and I thought this was this rambling conversation, but eventually he discovered through a conversation that I had recently kind of upgraded my apartment, and I put a new sisal carpeting and also new down pillows, like down bedding in my house, and those two things were making me sick. And he said, you're killing yourself with natural fibers. You need to get those out, which is counterintuitive. But anyway, I was better within 6 hours of that conversation. And I just thought it was so remarkable to me that the medical industry, none of the other doctors I talked to even have that conversation about your environment around you. And I would love to see more of that kind of conversation.
And it's not, I wouldn't say it's just, doctors and their preparation is the problem. As a society, we don't reward that.
Right.
So,
we want a pill, a quick fix.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, and like the typical doctor's visit is 15 minutes. And I've kind of tried to find somebody who's more holistic, where you get more time, but the medical system isn't really set up for that. So unless you go into like holistic or functional medicine, but there's not really
that bridge. Nurse practitioners have made a lot of headway. as far as licensure and licensing, the ability to practice medicine. Their payment structure is just a little bit different, but I see what nurse practitioners are doing as kind of a step out of that rigid box that we're in. It's not a jump out of the box, but a little bit of head in that direction. So, very nice.
So I'm in the field of cognitive health.
Yes.
And not necessarily education, but cognitive health across the lifespan.
Yes.
And what's emerging to me in the research that I read is that as we age, and I'm here because I'm interested on that end of the spectrum, we're starting to lose independence, not from one of those medical conditions,
Right.
because we have pharmaceutical interventions that will prop up life
Right.
long past the quality of life. And what's really robbing our active, healthy aging is the cognitive limitations and declines. Now,
Right.
some of those pillars are very close to the pillars I prescribe, that we follow in healthy, cognitive aging. Socialization was key, continuing education, a lot of the fitness, sleep,
Yep.
low neuroinflammation, all of those things are present.
Absolutely.
But it's not as much about the length of life
Mhm.
as the quality of that life.
Which is huge. I work for NRH in DC. Sorry, you're de facto DC representative. And that's the tagline for NRH is adding life to years as opposed to years to life.
No, that's great.
And I like the tagline. I mean, we still practice typical Western medicine, but the tagline makes sense. And you will have a huge following, all right, people who are very engaged and invested in your business because the research is there, all right? So someone is showing signs of dementia and, oh no, what can we do, all right? I have an IN2L system. I train all the people that work in my senior living community on this interaction piece, all right? It's too late. It's too late. We need to make kind of some of these changes now, all right, to be able to reap the benefits. And unfortunately, and I think it's a travesty, but what you're talking about, I have plenty of people who are like, stage 3 with Alzheimer's disease. What can we do? Well, I'll take care of you. I will, humanize every interaction and provide a safe place for you to be. But that's it. That's what we have in Western Maryland.
How does it change? Because the institutional capture, academic capture, it's all set up for science that is about massive commercialization and profiteer. Like, it doesn't,
So that feeds on a market.
Yeah.
All right. And so I do believe that the way to change is a market that expands its demands.
from the bottom up, like the individual.
Yeah. So, and ultimately the conversation with the doctor, okay, blood pressure, this number looks good, cholesterol good, and out. Well, wait a second, what about, all right, as a physical therapist, honestly, this is a good conversation. The reason that I'm an administrator in senior living right now is because I couldn't practice how I wanted to as a physical therapist anymore, all right? Being in hospital systems, I could have conversations about smoking cessation, and they tolerated that, all right? But I couldn't see people proactively.
We're off the reservation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I couldn't see people proactively. There's plenty of physicians who practice concierge medicine. Now, unfortunately, we talk about a market and a market having different demands. Right now, it's people who have the means to be able to meet that demand. And primarily, the most of our population in this country does not have the means to be able to make that demand. They are subject to health care as opposed to being able to make those changes. I'm sorry. How's that for a non-answer? I should go into politics.
So, David, what's one thing that you recommend we do or change now just to get to where we need to be?
Oh, Lord. So it all depends on your personality. All right. So what you eat. all right? So I can't give it to you. I'll talk about me. I know me, all right? So I was asked, David, give a little bit of information about yourself. And so I just, I wrote up a quick blurb. And then I said, when I'm not doing these things or talking about these things, I'm trying to avoid hypocrisy. So being cognizant of these things, I think, is important. And then choices. So I do the cooking at the house, and so I have found over time, I am making decisions about less red meat. How much on the plate? How much is vegetable? All right. How much is pasta? How much is protein? And then, so I think that for me, that was a great place to start. This has worked very well for me.
Yeah.
All right. Just stop. Like David, stop.
Yeah.
So that mindfulness piece. One thing that I haven't done that I know that I need to, and I'm going to blame my wife because she's not here, is that routine. All right. So my wife likes to stay up late, and it's because we have a 12 and 14-year-old daughter. And so anytime after 11 that she's not having to be mom, she likes to take advantage of that. And I've fallen into that. So like my ability to kind of like be with her and share time, we've just fallen into that. About, it's 12 o'clock. I've been asleep on the sofa for 30 minutes now. And so thinking about that schedule and actually budgeting time so that it's quality time. I think that's another huge, that's probably the next area of greatest opportunity for me personally, is budgeting that time.
Is that schedule primarily to make sure that you get enough sleep, or is there something about being on the same schedule every night?
So enough sleep, yes, all right, but honestly, as human beings, we're creatures of habit. If you can establish that habit or that pattern, then you don't have to necessarily think about it. It becomes just natural. So yes, restorative sleep, 7 hours, 8 hours. If you're in that area, that's kind of what the research is showing for the importance of sleep. But I really think it's more of a human behavior piece. Schedule it, do it, boom, boom, boom. All right. Not Daniel Pink. What's the other guy? Malcolm.
Gladwell.
Gladwell, thank you. Yeah. So I mean, he's come out and said, look, guys, you put a little too much importance on this, but if you do something kind of 10,000 times, it becomes something that you're good at. So I think it's the